Hey Flosstube friends, my name is Lynn and this is my channel Those Missing Stitches, where I talk all about cross stitch and a little bit about reading at the very end. Today is Friday, September 5th, and this is my Flosstube number 33. Welcome and thank you for joining me. I appreciate that you're all here on this journey with me. For today, I am going to go through my WIPs, everything that I worked on in August. I can't believe we're in September already. I do have some plans to go over, and then at the very end I will talk about books. So I'm super excited. I love this time of year. It's not quite fall yet. It's still very hot where I live, but I love fall and Halloween and the weather and the holidays, and I always get super excited for all of the events, everything going on, and my stitching kind of follows that. So I'm starting to already get into some of the spooky stuff in the Halloween and the fall colors and just loving it. I love this time of year, if you can't tell. Okay, so let's get straight into it. I'm going to go through my WIPs, and I always like to start with my stats. So in October, I worked on 11 projects. I did a total of 26,101 stitches. I had 4 new starts, and I had 2 finishes. So one of my new starts was actually a start and a finish. So I will go through showing you all of these. So first is one of my finishes that I've shown you before. This is called Read the Book, Stitch the Things, and it's the artist is Sapphire Mountain Crafts. I stitched this 1/1 full cross with DMC, but a full color conversion that I did for myself in colors that I liked a little better than the colors that were included in the chart. And I stitched it on 22 count white hardinger. That was just a scrap piece that I had from, I think, Hobby Lobby. And here is my finish. I love how this came out with these colors. I totally switched some of them up. Some of them were supposed to, like the bottom leaves were supposed to be the pink color, even if I just did like for like on some of the color conversions, but I just flipped it around and did what I wanted to and did what felt right, and I love how it came out. And I love that it says needlework on the left if you're facing it, and then literature on the right. Perfect for me because I love stitching and I love the books. I love that one. So excited. And it was a pretty, I wouldn't say quick stitch. I stitched on it quite a bit for a few months. I think I started in May as part of Mania, along with Pam from Just Keep Stitching and a couple other people that were stitching it with her. But to get it done since May, that's pretty good. It was a total of 7,534 stitches, so not bad. Okay, my next one was a start and a finish. This is from, I got last month, in August, it was released, the Witchy Stitcher book of different Witchy Stitcher patterns, and I did get the physical book, and then like a week later she released the PDF, and I have been able to get some of the PDF patterns to work in Markup RXP creatively, so but definitely didn't work in Pattern Keeper because it's like 100 and something page PDF. So but this is one of the very first one that I saw in the book and knew I wanted to do right away. This one's called Book of Spells Bookmark. It is by the Witchy Stitcher. I stitched it on 18 count Brave Boromir from my shop. 2/1 full cross with the called for DMC. And here's my start and finish. I love it. This one only took me 3 days. And it's one of many. I think I have like 8 in the book that I want to stitch. So, and I forgot to bring it up with me. So maybe I'll show it to you next time. Some of the patterns that I want to stitch, because I'm pretty sure I'll have started at least another one by that point. I know which one I want to do next. But this was the first one that jumped out at me, and it's fairly small, so I knew it would be a decently quick. And I think I need a lot more smalls in my life. I need some finishes. I really need some finishes. I tend to pick really big projects, so I want to get to some of those finishes. But let's get to the new stars. Speaking of giant projects, some more new stars for me. So this one is actually one, it's interesting, because I had this floss that I got, and I was kind of playing with dyeing for some future releases for some fabric dyes. And I put these colors together, this color of this fabric and this color of this floss. So when I need to start something with that, that is a gorgeous combination. So this is the first time I've ever combined like a floss and a fabric without knowing what pattern I want to do. Typically I have a pattern and then I kind of pick colors based on that, and even create colors based on that. But this one was the opposite. I knew when I saw these colors together, this would make a great modern folk embroidery, and I've been itching for a while to start Winter Kaleidoscope, so I did it. So this is Winter Kaleidoscope by Modern Folk Embroidery. I am stitching it on a 22 count teal color that I haven't named yet. I think I'm going to release it in my shop in January for more of a wintry color, and I'm stitching it 1/1 full cross with Silk for You PR 207. I have done a total in August of 2,821 stitches for 3.5%. And here's where I'm at. Love these colors. It's a little more tealish, more like what's actually in, like this, what's actually in the grind guard. It's coming across a little more blue on the screen, but it's a little more teal. Even the floss color too is a little more teal. It's coming out super blue on the screen. But I love how that one's coming out in that color combo. It's gorgeous. Okay. Next, this is another odd one for me. I know I said after the Grand Library that I would probably never ever do another full coverage on 18 count 2/1. They're just huge and heavy, and I switched over to 10 stitch on smaller count, like 25 or 28 for all of my other full coverage, but I was kind of itching for, I don't have, other than the Grand Library, I don't have any full coverage pieces that are on something I can see without really good light. So like 18 count or 20 count, 16 count, stuff like that. I can see outdoors or at a table or, without my normal odd light shining over me. I wanted something, and the Grand Library is so huge and I keep it in a lap stand. I just wanted a full coverage I could work on anywhere and could see and could carry it, that it's not super heavy. So I decided to, and I've been waiting for that one to kind of speak to me as the one that I wanted to start on 18 count. Okay, so this one came out. It is called Salem, Massachusetts Apothecary. The artist is Pixel Page Studio and is charted by Stitches So Beautiful. And I loved it. And I knew there was a lot of white and light colors on there, which I tend to have a harder time with not only 10 stitch, but on a smaller count, like 25 or 28. So I thought this would be perfect to start on either an 18 or 20. I originally started on 20 and tried to do a couple lines on 20. It was just too thick. So I switched over to 18 and I'm actually really loving it. It was nice to just have a full coverage to work on and be able to see and be able to know my bearings and stuff and just have that option. So I am stitching this one on 18 count, easy guide, Ada 2/1 full cross, what they call it for DMC. I did a total of 1,805 stitches for 1.68% in August. And here's where I'm at. Mostly just working on that 310 on the frame. But love how it's coming out and you can see some of that design popping out. And I'm hoping once I get into that like skeleton and stuff that the white is a little easier on this larger count. Okay, my last new start, which was actually my first new start in August. I saw this when it came out and I had to have it, and I created a fabric color for it, of course, which is going to be coming out in October. This one is Luna Moth by Shannon Christie Designs. This is my first one that I'm using. It's a little intimidating because there is a ton of beading, but it's so beautiful. I'm excited to finish it and get to that part and have that challenge. It's going to be beautiful when it's done. So this one is on a new fabric color that I'm creating in my shop. Be out in October. It's going to be called Malicious Mr. Hyde, and I'm stitching it on 20 count with the call for DMC. I did a total of 1,046 stitches in August for 8.64%. And here's where I'm at, and that beautiful new fabric color. I wanted something very, I did not want black, even though it looks gorgeous on the black. I'm having trouble with one of my other pieces that I'm working on black, even on a smaller count, or like an 18 count, or I don't know if that's larger count, smaller count. But this gray I can see on just fine. So it's interesting that just the slight difference, a very dark chalkboardy gray it's interesting that it's just almost black, but the difference between just a very dark gray and a black, and I can see so much better on the very dark gray. So I love how these colors are coming out and popping on this gray. It looks gorgeous. So that is Luna Moth. Okay, and everything else is stuff you've already seen, so it's just progress that I made in August on these pieces. The next one is Mr. Farrer's Confession. This is by Annie B's Folk Art. I am stitching this one on 22 count macchiato by Bestitch Me, and I did a full color and cotton conversion, and I'm doing it all 1/1 full cross. In August, I did a total of 1,489 stitches, and now in total I'm at 4,137 stitches for 40.24%. This is my closest to a finish of all the stuff that I have stitch counts on. And here's where I'm at now. Finally decided on a green, and love how it's coming out. I originally started with a kind of lighter green, and I didn't like how it was looking against the red in the house and the flowers, so I decided to go with a slightly darker, and I think it's working out really well. especially since all this down here is just, it's a full green grass. So there's going to be a lot of that green in there. So that's my close to finish. And one of my Jane Austen inspired patterns for the Jane Austen Stitch Jane 2025 250th anniversary of Jane Austen's birthday. I have more coming. I have even more that I've started. So loving the Jane Austen stitches, and I'm hoping people continue to release them and continue to be inspired even outside of the year of our anniversary. Okay, next is Rainbow Diagonal. This is by Emblem Designs. I'm stitching this one on 25 count silvery moon Lugana with CXC 1/1 full cross. In August, I did an additional 1,306 stitches. In total, now I'm at 3,319 stitches for 12.36%. I forgot to show you where I was the last time, or say, here's where I was last time. Hopefully show it and remember to insert the picture. But for Rainbow Diagonal, here's where I was the last time I showed this. And now here's where I'm at now with the additional 1,306. So this is another colorful one that I started after I finished 324 by Works by ABC and just loved working with all those colors. Just wanted something really colorful again. And this is definitely doing it. Just going row by row. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do once I get to the rows that actually cross over the Q-snap. I was thinking I might turn it, but we'll see. I don't know if my brain can work with my stitches going sideways. I don't know. We'll see. Or maybe just use a bigger Q-snapper stitch in hand, potentially. Haven't done that in a while. Okay, next is Trick or Treat Town by Flossabilities. I am stitching this one on 18 count Haunted by Picture This Plus, 2/1 full cross with the called for DMC. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. And in August, I did an additional 699 stitches. In total, I'm at 2,322 stitches for 14.44%. This one is definitely coming out again for Halloween. Here's where I'm at now. Just trying to get the frames of those houses done to just have a point of reference for other stuff to fill in. Love how it's coming out on this Haunted, very spooky night color. And I love stitching houses, even though sometimes it's repetitive. I like this one. It's got a lot of gables and things that are in different colors that make it, change it up a little bit. Okay, next is my biggest piece of everything, McGonagall's Library by the Cross Stitch Studio. I'm stitching this one on 28 count Easy Guide Lugana, 2/110 stitch with CXC. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. In August, I stitched an additional 8,555 stitches. And now in total, I'm at 40,784 stitches for 6.37%. So not bad at all for starting this one in May and only being a few months in. I'm just sticking to the 310 for now. And here's where I'm at. This is edge to edge. It's the full length of it. I just have a little bit in this section right here to stitch the rest of the black on, and then I'll have the first 2 rows of pages finished in the black. And then I'm going to decide if I'm going to go down to the next rows. I think I will, because then you get into the bookshelves and there's tons of colors you can, swap to once you actually get some of the outlines of the books. But we'll see. I just jam on this one. Sometimes I just get in the zone and it's easy to just sit there and stitch a bunch of 10 stitch black and follow a pattern pretty quickly. So loving how this one's coming along. Okay, next is Witch's Hollow by Autumn Lane Stitchery. I'm stitching this one on 20 count Genial Ginny, which is a color from my shop. It's in my shop now if you're interested. I'm using the called for DMC 2/1 full cross. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. I didn't work on it a ton. I put an additional 192 stitches. And in total now I'm at 5,235 stitches for 23.75%. And here's where I'm at. I think I mostly just finished or worked on the tree. So not much. But again, Halloween season, so I'm sure this one is coming out. Very nice. That one's another nice one to work on because I'm just working color by color too. Okay, and last but not least is Fruits of Plenty by Modern Folk Embroidery. I'm stitching this one on 25 count Silvery Moon Lugana, 1/1 full cross. I was using this one as the challenge for Andrew the Runner Stitcher's Whip into Shape. And he actually, life happened and he wasn't able to run the marathon at the end of August, but I'm super excited because I think he's planning to run the New York Marathon, I think in November. So he's still training and he's still, providing the spreadsheet to update his stitches if people want to continue with Whip into Shape. I was initially thinking he's going to be done and Whip into Shape would be done, so I wanted to switch to something, and I thought about something else that I'll talk about in my plans, but I might continue with this one as long as he's continuing on his marathon training. So here's what was the last time I showed it. In August, I did an additional 1,195 stitches, and in total I'm at 30,014 stitches for 63.32%. And here's where I'm at now. I love how much progress I've been making on this one. Actually, I can let it go because you can see it is going to be a little longer. I'm getting close. I'm getting close to that bottom. One more little hexagon, and then I'll be at the bottom. But I definitely want to continue with something on this one because I'm loving the progress I'm making on it. And I would love to have this finished in the next, year or so. That would be awesome. Okay. So that is it for my whips. Did make a lot of progress. This was, I think, my second or third highest stitch month, or August was second or third highest stitch month of 2025 so far. So lots getting done, especially with all that 10 stitch on McGonagall's library. But let's talk about plans. So I did talk about it's Halloween season, love the fall, got the Witchy Stitcher book. I have lots of plans for some of those Witchy Stitcher stuff. I don't know, whatever the fall, wherever the fall takes me, wherever the holidays take me. I tend to stitch Halloween even through like November, and I typically don't switch to Christmas until it actually gets into like December. And sometimes I still stitch Halloween year round. So I just love Halloween and love those fall colors. So we'll see what comes up for me. I would love to hear if anybody else has any Halloween new starts coming up, and maybe I can check them out and we can start a sale. So let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you're excited about starting, and I'll check them out. I also saw a new pattern from Jacob that he just released last week, I think, from Modern Folk Embroidery. That is another Jane Austen inspired pattern that I'll put up here. I do plan to start this one this month because, of course, it's Jane Austen and it's Modern Folk Embroidery, two of my weaknesses and perfect combination. So I am going to start that one this month. And then, I'm seeing about probably continuing Fruits of Plenty with Whip into Shape challenge. But I was also considering Gridiron Grind. So last night was the start of football, regular season football. I love football. I watch it regularly. My team is the LA Rams. So, having a football related challenge for stitching, especially since I do watch football every weekend and I tend to sit and stitch while I watch it, this would be a perfect challenge to actually, get some stitching done. But if I stick with Fruits of Plenty for Whip into Shape, I'm not sure what I would do for Gridiron Grind. I don't know that there's specifically one particular piece that I would be really wanting to get some progress on. My thought was I might do what's my closest to a finish. And then if I am able to finish it by doing this challenge, then just work on my next closest to a finish. And that way I have some more finishes before the end of the year. But we'll see. I'll decide by Sunday because that's when they're playing, and I kind of have some ideas of how I want to count stitches per, points or scores or running yards or things like that. That some people, there's a lot of ideas out there. I first heard of it from Kim Hollenbeck, and she does have a Flosstube channel, which I'll link down below if you're interested in checking it out. Lots of people have picked it up now and have different things that they're going to count for their team. And you can just define it for however you want to define it. Some people are doing like bonus stitches for if their team wins, and some are based on points that they get. Some are based off of yardage. Some are based off of, how many passes. There's a lot of different things that you could use if you're a football fan and you're interested in counting points based off of football, or stitches based off of football statistics. And of course, I'm a data geek, so anything based off of statistics is fantastic to me, and I love the idea. So this is a challenge I think I can get into, like Whip into Shape, where it's a certain number of stitches per mile, and supporting Andrew in that marathon training as well. So those are things that do excite me and get me motivated to stitch on things. Okay, so that's the end of my cross-stitch section of the video. Next, I'm going to talk about books. So if that's not something you're interested in sticking around to and you're signing off at this point, I hope you subscribe and join me next time, and I'll see you then. Okay, if you're sticking around, let's talk about books. So I finished, let me count them. I did not count them this time. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books in August. And there were some really good ones in there. So let's just start with, the first one I read was 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This was really a book about like, kind of star-crossed lovers, or like unfinished business, or, second chances, or redemption and forgiveness, and really troubled childhoods, and helping each other through troubled childhoods, and the possibility of overcoming that, and where it could lead you if you can overcome that in your adulthood, and even in one of the characters' cases, where it could lead you if you don't overcome some of that. So I really, really, especially in this book, it was very, not very spicy, but it was very sexy, I guess, is the way to put it. It wasn't super spicy. There's a couple scenes that were maybe a little more spicy, but it was very loving and nurturing, and I really, really loved the relationship between the mother and daughter, and how mature the daughter was, especially, being raised by a single mother. And I think she was only 12, but she was like super smart and intuitive, and just really, really funny in how they interacted with each other. So really love the mother-daughter relationship, and love the idea of second chances. Next, I read House of Sky and Breath. Now, I know last month when I went over my books, I literally just filmed my video for last month saying how I had finished the first book. Oh, this is by Sarah J. Maas. So it's a series of 3. This was the second book in the series. And in my last video, I had just finished the first book and was talking about how, I don't know, it's not the greatest series. I don't know if I'm really interested. I am listening to the second book now, but I'm really not, getting into it. So literally the next day after I filmed that video, I finished it. I finished the audiobook, and in the very last chapter, there's a twist of a crossover into another series, and in my mind, I was literally like, "Okay, Sarah Maas, you got me. That was a good one, you trickster. Gotta listen to the third book." So I did want to see where that crossover went. So I did actually finish the third book as well. So that was House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah Maas. Really like the crossover part. I did like to get some more, I guess, just some more information on some of those characters, and just be able to hear more about those characters that I really do love from one of those other series. But otherwise, between these 2 books, I do feel like the whole thing was just overly complicated. The whole series was overly complicated. A whole lot of characters, a whole lot of fight scenes and conflicts, and men getting really, really angry because somebody, looked at their girl wrong or something. It was just a little too much for me. I even found myself at some points in the third book rolling my eyes like, not again. Come on, just get on with it. I do like how it ended and wrapped up the story for a lot of the characters, but I do feel like 3 books, and 3 really, really long books, was just way too many for this series, and it could have been simplified a little more. I don't think it was bad. It was just not great especially compared to our other series that I really did like. So take that with a grain of salt. Fantasy is not typically my genre, but I do like good ones. I do like other ones by Sarah Maas. I do like certain other ones, but they really, really, really have to get me and not be overly ridiculous. Let's say that. Okay, let's move on. So next I read Story of My Life by Lucy Score. This is a cute one, and especially a breath of fresh air after reading Sarah J. Maas. It was a romance, and it was kind of clever the way it was like the character is a romance writer with writer's block after her divorce. She's really just kind of devastated from her divorce and can't move on, and decides, I'm just going to start over. I'm a city girl. I'm just going to go to a small town. She sees some article in a paper about some family of men, and like realizes, oh, this could be a really good inspiration. This small town with these guys that maybe they can kind of spark my romantic writing interest again. So I do like a lot of the, there's a lot of antics that happen when she goes to this small town, and it is really a small town life and whether she's going to be accepted. I really liked a lot of the correlations between her using inspiration from like people she's meeting in real life and explaining terminology of romance writing and how certain real life stuff would proceed if this was actually writing in a romance book, which was a romance book. So clever of Lucy Score to do that. There was a part in particular, I even highlighted it, I really liked it, where one of the guys that's the romantic interest basically tries to pick a fight, and she says, I don't accept this. This in the romance novel of our lives would be called lazy writing. It's where an author actually picks a fight deliberately with something that's easily resolvable with two mature adults that communicate. They're actually communicating. So I really thought that was funny, because that's often what happens in romance novels. It drives me crazy. Like, it's such a simple thing if you just communicated with each other. And I know a lot of people have trouble with that, and I do too sometimes, but just like that there's actually a term for that, and that romance writers are actually aware of that we could just make it mature adults communicating and everything would be solved. So I thought that was clever, and it kind of made me chuckle. And, otherwise it was a normal romance. It had, a lot of those other cliched things, but it was kind of funny that it was, correlating writing a romance novel with actually being a romance novel. So next I read The Phoenix Pencil Company by Allison King. This is a story that takes place mostly in China during the course of two different wars in the 50s, 60s, 70s, with two young girls who are cousins, and their families, the women in the families, have this gift that they call reforging of pencils, or bringing the words back to life that have been written with whatever these pencils are. So there's also like a back and forth of a modern day telling. One of the women now has dementia, and her granddaughter, or is developing dementia, and her granddaughter is trying to get her story of what happened in China, while she can remember it. So there's definitely an element of magic or something kind of fantastical about it that may not be for everyone, if like having gifts or magical gifts is not something for you. I mostly enjoyed the grandma story, but I did like the kind of correlation to the modern day telling from the granddaughter's perspective, that she's very much into technology and developing this code for software that is supposed to be about memory keeping and finding connections, but they kind of have a lot of discussions about, even with the pencil forging too, and the correlation to the pencil forging, how far can we take that where we're not crossing the line of being invasive or invading other people's privacy. Like, where is that line of it's a story versus a private story? So really interesting between the two timelines and the two different types of, pencils versus technology, how things are the same even 50 years later. So next is The People We Keep by Allison Larkin. April is a teenager with a mother that left when she was very young and a really absent father, very poor, very neglected. She definitely doesn't have an easy childhood, and this kind of translates into her adulthood and a not so easy adulthood. She essentially does what she needs to do to survive and is a little bit transient, I guess. And some of those things she does to survive are not always pretty. But along the way, we meet all these characters, both good and bad, and some of the really good ones you get to, and the bad ones, you get to learn the impact that they each have on her and how she keeps, like the people we keep, how she keeps that little bit of each of them with her. I really liked the end and how it came together, but I can't say more without giving away anything. But it really is the point of the book, is how you keep people with you, even when they have a small amount of time in your life, they may have a big impact. So I like that aspect of the book a lot. Next, I read Spectacular Things by Beck Dory Stein. This was a great story about sisterhood and sacrifice, and especially for me personally, as an older sister to younger siblings, that how I was raised was to help, as an older sister, it's my responsibility to help raise the younger siblings. So this one really resonated with me. The sacrifices that one sister makes, and even the mom, like working two jobs to help support her younger daughter's dreams of being a soccer star. So the one sister making the sacrifices out of love and obligation to help support the younger sister as well in her dreams of becoming a soccer player. And then the sacrifice that the younger daughter makes in dedicating her entire life to sports and this dream that she has. And her, intent focus on being in the Olympics and being in the World Cup. And this has started when she's, very, very young, like 7 years old, if not younger, since birth, since her mom wanted to be a soccer star too. So in some cases, this dream and helping each other and supporting each other, making sacrifices brings them together. But in some cases, of course, it creates barriers. So I did like this one. I really liked the different characters of the sisters and how they each had their own version of sacrifice and what they were willing and not willing to do, and how they kind of come into their own and evolve in that. So good story of how that all came together. Next, I read Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Originally, a couple months ago, I think I tried to read the actual book, but I just couldn't get into it. So I thought I would try the audiobook since I've heard so much about this one. There's so many rave reviews and highly recommended. And I did enjoy I did have a much better experience with the audiobook. I will say, I think if I had gotten past the first couple of chapters of character introduction and introduction of the town, I probably would have had a easier time with the physical book as well and been fine. But I did enjoy the audiobook. I think it was a little easier to follow along with some of the characters, and just the way that Frederick Bachman, his writing style, I think was a little easier for me to follow on an audiobook. But essentially it's about a small hockey town where anything and everything is all about hockey and all about your team winning. Adults, kids, everyone is very much into this hockey team. And something happens with one of the hockey players that's accused of something, and it very, very much divides the town. Who do you believe in? Who do you support? And this one really, really had me thinking, especially as a mom of a teenage boy, and the undertones of the book that become lessons for parents and for kids on ethical and moral situations that you may face, and which side can you live with being on. And both sides actually have consequences, but each individual has to decide the different reasons for what kind of consequences they can live with. So definitely good from a very philosophical and moral lens, and really had me thinking and actually having discussions with my husband and my son about it. So this was a good read overall, even for just the thoughts that it provoked in me. But intense. It is tough. So there is some triggering things in there because there is a trauma that happens. So definitely could be triggering for some people. So I will give you that warning if that's not something you're interested in reading. Okay. That was a tough one to leave off of. I should have left on the romance, but I had a couple of books that I finished since then. So definitely less heavy reading since then. So I will talk about those in my next video. That was it for my August reading. Thank you again for joining me if you've made it this far. I hope everyone has a fantastic month of stitching and reading, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.